Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. Today's card features a couple of products from a fabulous new collection by Spellbinders called Fair Winds. The sweet seagull sitting on the dock post is from Oh Boy die set, and the background has been stenciled with Uncharted Waters. The seaside scene is going to be created with 6 stencils, and I'll be working with Distress Oxide inks. My panel of Bristol Smooth cardstock is just a little bit larger than A2 size because I'm going to be die cutting it. I have it on a sticky mat which holds it in place and the stencil in place as I apply my inks. For stencil 1, I'll first apply pumice stone to the clouds and the rock, and then finish up the rock with a little bit of shaded lilac. Weathered wood will be added to the clouds to finish them off. Stencil 2 is all about the foreground, the big and beautiful sea. To create some watery depth, I'll be working with 3 inks: Peacock Feathers, Salvage Patina, and Tumbled Glass. I started off with the darkest ink, Peacock Feathers, right along the horizon. I'm now adding in some bands of color using the Salvage Patina. I just take it part way across the panel, alternating from side to side. I'll add in Tumbled Glass, which is the lightest ink, to soften the edges of both the Peacock Feathers and Salvage Patina. And I'll finish up by going back to the mid-tone with a very light pressure and blend all of those colors together. Now on to stencil 3, and I had difficulty lining it up because my clouds were so light. So I put my second stencil over top, lined those 2 up, then I could line it up with the rock at the bottom, remove it, and then my third stencil was in place. The base of the sky will be inked up with Faded Jeans, a dark blue ink. I'm going for an evening sky, so my colors are quite dark. The Faded Jeans will give way to a purplish blue called Dusty Concord. As I apply the ink around the stencils that are masking the clouds, I hold them in place so that they do not shift. Go back to the Faded Jeans and add just a little bit more to blend those 2 colors together so that it's not such an abrupt change. And you can just see that little hint of purple peeking through the dark blue. I'll continue with the upper half of the sky with some inks that are a little bit lighter, starting with Shaded Lilac. To help unify the entire scene, I like to repeat colors between the foreground and the sky. I'll be going back to the Salvage Patina, and then I'll reintroduce Shaded Lilac to give it a duskier look. I'll also add it right underneath that cloud that is at the top of the panel to give some shadows to it. The 4th stencil will add some detail to the rock, and I'll be using Hickory Smoke, a dark gray. For the background that meets the horizon along the sea, I'm going to start off with some picked raspberry. I'm going to darken it later though. Stencil 5 adds further detail to the rocks, and I'm going to use Shaded Lilac. I really like using purples for soft shadow areas. Continue with this ink to the background that meets the sea. 5th stencil will add in seagulls and then some details to the water. Everything on this stencil is going to be done in Chipped Sapphire. This is a deep blue that is quite a bit darker than the Faded Jeans. I'm going to be adding in some highlights with white pigment ink. A mini blending brush does a good job of adding the highlights just to the top of the seagulls. It'll also be added along the edges of the water details to create a shimmery look. I'm going to go back to stencils 4 and 5 so that I can deepen up that background area that meets the sea. For this one, I'm adding in Chipped Sapphire, and I'll finish it off with more of the picked raspberry. And I have a little bit of a white line there, so I just shift my stencil up to fix that. For the fifth stencil, I'll add in some more of the faded jeans. All right, so now I'm done and I'm going to be die cutting this panel with one of the dies from Essential Stylish Ovals. Next largest die was used to cut black cardstock so that there will be a border around it. I'll be adding in the seagull sitting on the dock post from the old Buoy die set. The post and the top of the post have been die cut from craft cardstock, and I'm using walnut stain and a small blending brush to add in some color to give it some depth and dimension. Small die cuts have a way of getting away from me, so I'm just going to add that on right now. The main die for the seagull has been cut from white cardstock. A bit of tape has been placed behind the die cut opening for the eye. The little die cut was colored with a black Copic marker and then popped into the opening. Both the beak and the legs were cut from orange cardstock. I just have a preference to use a jewel picker rather than tweezers when assembling small die cuts. And so I'm just going to add a little bit of shadow to the base of the seagull's body using pumice stone. And I know I should have done it before, but I forgot. And I'll do the same thing to the wing and also add in just a little bit of dark gray with the hickory smoke. The edged outline of the wing on the bird's body makes it easy for placement. Oh my gosh, isn't he adorable? For the rope details for the posts, I'll use some pumice stone just on either end of each die cut. These die cuts are small, and so I did find it easier to hold them with tweezers to add in the adhesive and then place it on the post. And this first one I'm placing at a diagonal, and then the rest will be placed more or less horizontally. And I have a little bit of overhang, so I just flip the die cut over and trim that off. The stenciled background is going to be mounted on a foam die cut. The foam was cut with the next smallest die that was used to cut the background. And I just put my stenciled background face down and then center the foam on it. And then the foam backed panel is adhered to the black oval die cut. Then on it goes to a card base measuring 4 1/4 inches by 5 1/2 inches, A2 size. The first thing that I'm going to do with the die cuts is add my seagull to the top of the post with a little bit of glue. The die cuts have yet to be adhered to the card. I first want to use it just to position the sentiment, which is a simple high out of dark purple cardstock from the fresh picked sentiment die set. Post with the seagull sitting on top is going to be adhered with small foam squares. It is positioned on the card so that the bottom of the post overhangs the oval and the sentiment high is just tucked behind the bird's head. Spellbinders has just released a whole series of color essential gems. There's a wide range of colors. They are just gorgeous, self-adhesive, and super sparkly. I'm adding in smoky topaz, the perfect color for this evening seascape. I find it easiest to pick up these adhesive-backed embellishments using my craft pick. I use the pick just to slightly go underneath the gem and then pick it up. And that wraps up this card with Spellbinders Fair Winds Collection featuring Uncharted Water stencil set and the old Buoy die set. Thank you so much for stopping by, and as always, I appreciate your visit.